There's a kind of pain that doesn't scream. It doesn't beg for attention. It doesn't demand explanations. It simply stays. And if you are here right now, listening to this, there is a strong chance you know exactly what that pain feels like. Not the pain of a loud rejection, not the pain of an argument or a clear goodbye, but the pain of silence. The pain of being emotionally abandoned without anyone ever saying they were leaving. Stoic philosophers understood this pain long before psychology gave it a name. They knew that the deepest wounds are often invisible, not because they are small, but because they are endured quietly. And today, this message is not here to judge you. It's not here to rush your healing. It's not here to tell you to move on or be strong. It's here to sit with you, to remind you that what you feel makes sense, and that you are not broken for feeling it. The loneliness that comes without absence. One of the most confusing forms of suffering is realizing that someone didn't leave physically, but they left emotionally. They still exist. They still breathe the same air, but their presence no longer reaches you. No explanation. No closure. Just distance disguised as normalcy. Stoicism teaches us that confusion often hurts more than certainty. Because certainty, even painful certainty, allows the mind to adapt. But silence traps the mind in questions that never get answers. What did I do wrong? When did things change? Was I not enough? These questions echo not because you are weak, but because the human mind is wired to seek meaning. And when meaning is denied, the pain stays open. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that the soul becomes colored by the thoughts it hosts. When silence fills those thoughts, the soul begins to darken, not from anger, but from exhaustion. And if you feel tired in a way that sleep doesn't fix, that is not laziness. That is emotional depletion. Why silence hurts more than rejection. Rejection has an ending. Silence does not. When someone rejects you openly, your pain has edges. It hurts, but it has a shape. You can point to it and say, that is where it happened. Silence, however, has no borders. It spreads. It seeps into memories. It rewrites moments that were once warm. Stoics warned against allowing external events to dominate our inner world, but they also acknowledged how deeply human attachment is. You did not imagine the connection you felt. You did not invent the bond. You responded to something real. And losing something real without explanation creates a psychological limbo. You are not grieving a person who is gone. You are grieving a version of closeness that vanished without warning. That kind of loss doesn't announce itself. It whispers, and those whispers follow you into quiet moments. You are not weak for feeling this. Modern culture glorifies resilience without reflection. It praises those who don't care and shames those who feel deeply. Stoicism has been misunderstood because of this. True Stoicism is not emotional suppression. It is emotional understanding. The Stoics believe that pain is not a failure of character, but an invitation to observe reality clearly. And the reality is this: being emotionally abandoned hurts because humans are wired for connection. Feeling pain in response to loss is not weakness. It is evidence of your humanity. What matters is not whether you feel pain, but how you relate to it. Do you fight it? Do you shame yourself for it? Or do you allow it to exist without letting it define you? This distinction changes everything. The silent agreement you didn't know you made. One of the hardest realizations is understanding that we often form emotional contracts without ever signing them consciously. You show up, you listen, you invest. And somewhere along the way, your nervous system learns to expect safety in that connection. When that safety disappears without warning, your body reacts before your logic does. This is why you might feel anxious without knowing why. Why memories suddenly feel heavy. Why silence feels louder at night. Stoicism reminds us that expectation is a double-edged sword. Not because hope is wrong, but because attachment without awareness creates suffering. This does not mean you were wrong to care. It means you are now being called to care for yourself with the same devotion you gave to others. Comfort is not the same as forgetting. Healing does not require erasing the past. It requires reframing it. The Stoics taught that we cannot control what others give or withhold, but we can control how we interpret its meaning. Silence does not mean you are unworthy. Distance does not mean you were disposable. Withdrawal does not mean you failed. Sometimes, silence is simply a reflection of another person's limitations, not your value. And this is where comfort begins, not in answers, not in closure, but in understanding that your worth was never dependent on their presence. Learning to sit with yourself again. Abandonment often leaves a quiet fear behind, the fear of being alone with your own thoughts. But Stoicism teaches that solitude is not abandonment when it is chosen consciously. This is the moment where pain slowly transforms into strength. Not the loud, aggressive kind of strength, but the calm, grounded kind. The strength that says, I am still here. I can hold my own emotions. I don't need silence to define me. This process takes time. And time is not your enemy. Impatience is. You don't heal by forcing yourself forward. You heal by allowing yourself to stand still without judgment. If you are listening right now, if this message feels personal, it's because it is. Not because your story is unique in pain, but because it is unique in meaning. You are not behind. You are not failing at healing. You are responding to a loss that mattered. And Stoicism would never tell you to ignore that. It would tell you to observe it, to learn from it, and to let it shape you without hardening you. There is a moment in every silent loss when something shifts. Not suddenly, not dramatically, but quietly. It happens when you realize that waiting for clarity has cost you more peace than the truth ever would. Stoicism calls this moment the return to self, not because others no longer matter, but because your inner stability can no longer depend on what remains unspoken. This is not about closing your heart. It is about relocating its center. When closure never comes, one of the most painful lessons in life is accepting that some stories end without explanations. Your mind wants a final sentence, a reason, a moment that makes sense of everything. But silence does not provide endings. It provides space. And in that space, many people stay stuck, replaying conversations, imagining alternate versions of themselves, wondering what could have been done differently. Stoicism teaches that closure is not something you receive. It is something you practice. Not by rewriting the past, but by refusing to let unanswered questions dictate your future. You may never know why they withdrew. You may never hear the truth you deserve. And still, you can choose not to abandon yourself in response. The strength of emotional self-respect. There is a quiet dignity in deciding that your inner peace deserves protection. Stoics believe that self-respect begins when we stop chasing validation from places that cannot give it. This doesn't mean pretending you don't care. It means acknowledging care without allowing it to consume you. You are allowed to miss someone without minimizing yourself. You are allowed to grieve without begging for recognition. Self-respect grows when you say internally, I do not need to prove my worth to be worthy. That sentence alone can change the way pain sits inside you, turning silence into sovereignty. Silence feels powerful when it is imposed on you, but it loses its power when you stop fighting it. Stoicism reframes silence not as rejection, but as information. It tells you something about boundaries, about emotional availability, about capacity. And while it may not tell you what you wanted to hear, it tells you what you need to know. When you stop interpreting silence as a verdict on your value, it becomes a mirror instead of a weapon. And mirrors, while uncomfortable, are honest. Learning to trust yourself again. Emotional abandonment often creates self-doubt. You begin to question your instincts, your perception, your memory of what was real. Stoics warn that when we doubt ourselves too deeply, we surrender our autonomy. This is why healing is not about becoming indifferent, but about becoming grounded. You felt what you felt because something was there. Your experience does not need external confirmation to be valid. Trusting yourself again means allowing your emotions to exist without interrogation. You don't need to justify your pain. You don't need to defend your sensitivity. Sensitivity is not fragility, it is awareness. Why peace is a practice, not a destination. Many people believe peace arrives when pain disappears. Stoicism teaches something different. Peace arrives when pain is no longer feared. When you stop running from it. When you stop naming it as failure. When you allow it to pass through you without resistance. This is not passive acceptance. It is disciplined calm, the kind of calm that says, "This hurts and I am still whole." Over time, this mindset changes how suffering behaves inside you. It softens, it loosens, it loses authority. You are allowed to move forward gently. There is no deadline for healing. You don't owe anyone strength on demand. You don't owe the world resilience on schedule. Stoicism values patience, not speed. You are allowed to take small steps, to feel okay one day and heavy the next. To make peace slowly. Growth that is rushed often breaks something else. Growth that is gentle tends to last. Reclaiming your inner authority. At the heart of Stoicism is one powerful idea. You do not control what happens to you, but you do control what happens within you. Emotional abandonment feels like something was taken, but what was taken was external. Your ability to choose meaning remains untouched. And when you reclaim that authority, pain no longer rules you, it informs you. You stop asking, "Why did they leave?" and start asking, "What does this moment require from me now?" That question is where strength lives. A quiet reminder for the nights that feel heavy. There will be moments, especially at night, when the silence returns. Memories resurface, emotions swell. The absence feels louder than the day. When that happens, remember this: you are not relapsing, you are processing. Healing is not linear, and Stoicism never demanded perfection, only awareness. Sit with the feeling without feeding it stories. Let it exist without judgment. And remind yourself, this moment will pass as all moments do. You are still becoming. Pain does not mean stagnation. Silence does not mean the end. Often, it means transformation is happening quietly. You are shedding versions of yourself that needed external reassurance to feel whole. What replaces them is not coldness, but steadiness. Not detachment, but discernment. And one day, without noticing when it happened, you will realize the silence no longer defines you. It no longer controls you. It no longer hurts the same way. Not because it meant nothing, but because you grew beyond its reach. Final words from one human to another. If no one has said this to you lately, let this message be the place you hear it. You did not imagine the connection. You are not foolish for caring. You are not weak for feeling the absence. You are human, and you are healing. Stoicism does not ask you to forget. It asks you to remember who you are without what you lost. And that version of you is calmer, stronger, and more whole than you think.